can you just tell me a little bit about your work and experience and expertise with immigration?
Sure. I've been privileged to serve on the Bishop's Committee on Migration. I was a member for several years, and then I was chairman for 3 years, and now I'm back to being a member again. And I'm also on the, it's a kind of a mouthful, the Pontifical Council for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant Peoples. So that's the Pope's Immigration Committee, you might say. That's the congregation headed by Cardinal Veglio that looks at the whole question of migration for the Catholic Church throughout the world. Immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, people on the move, anyone that's not away from home, let us say. So on a more permanent basis. These are the people that the Pope cares for. Often we call migrants the poorest of the poor because they have no home, they have no foundation, they don't have a support system, they're traveling from one country to another. They often endure hardships, very hazards along the way, human trafficking, drug cartels, organized crime, gangs. There's a lot of dangers involved in migration, and of course people are fleeing danger. They're fleeing persecution quite often when they migrate, and so it's a very important for the Pope, for the Church, for all of us to care about people on the move and what can we do to help migrants. So I've been privileged to work with the whole area of migration for our Catholic Church, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, as I say, and our Immigration Committee. I've met wonderful brother bishops, wonderful lay colleagues and religious who've dedicated themselves to the plight of the migrant, to helping migrants. Of course, here in our own country, as you know, we've been grappling with the terrible reality that we do not have a comprehensive immigration reform, that our immigration system is broken, that migrants are suffering, they're living in the shadows. They provide great service to our country, to our economy, to the needs of the American people, and yet they do not receive their just due, what's due them. They do not get the benefit of the protection of the law, medical treatment, education, things of this nature. So we really have to work for comprehensive immigration reform in our country, and we are. It's just that we've, as you know, kind of had a logjam in Congress, and it's a topic that's been highly politicized, and so which is sad because we're dealing with human beings, not political pawns. And some of our politicians are more ideological. For example, they'll say, you know, well, this is our no amnesty or things. That's their ideal. And so therefore they won't enact legislation that will help the undocumented who are here. But that's an ideal. We certainly strive for it. But you have to live with reality. The fact is, you've got almost 12 million people living in the country that are undocumented. And they're coming here because they're fleeing persecution. And they have God-given rights as human beings. So there's a lot of ways of looking at this, you know. And I think that the Church, the Catholic Church, has a very clear vision of the principles underlying what would be good comprehensive reform, immigration reform in our country. And so I encourage, you know, all of our students to study and to see for themselves how blessed we are in the United States to have immigrants as our neighbors.
And so along those lines, how do you feel about President Obama's recent executive action, and does that go along with how the Church feels comprehensive reform should be enacted, and then how do you feel about Congress's response to that?
Well, I think that President Obama's executive action was a good thing. I'm glad that he did it. It's not an ideal thing, and the President knows that as well. I mean, what we want is immigration reform through the Congress, because this is not going to last. But it's a stopgap measure, but it's an important measure, and I'm proud of the President for doing it. It was an important decision he made. After many years of struggling, he didn't just wake up one morning and decide to do it. He's been trying for a long time to get immigration reform, but he can't get any traction in Congress. And so at the end of the day, he felt, well, I got to do something, and this is the second term, so he said, I better start doing something. Congress won't act, I better. So I agree with him. I think he did the right thing to do it, but it's not, you know, a lasting measure. He knows, we know, that we don't want to get this done through executive action. We can't be depending on presidents to do executive action to get what we want. It's not going to work. And so we have to get something long-lasting and permanent like comprehensive immigration reform. I think the Congress's reaction, in large measure, at least those that have been pushing back against executive action, in my view, has been very, very unfortunate. And again, ideological, without a real care for the people involved, from my perspective. I don't see evidence of a real concern for these people. I see more evidence for a concern for ideals that in this particular situation must give way to justice, to charity, to other realities, from my perspective. And so I regret some of the pushback from the Congress. Hopefully that's just posturing, which is something that they do. And I hope that they'll get down to business when they get over that and get down to real business and serve the American people and do what they've been elected to do, is my hope. But hopefully we'll get comprehensive immigration reform soon, because people's lives are in the balance and we need to do something and do it quickly.
And then lastly, going forward, what kind of steps would you like to see if Congress takes comprehensive reform? What would you like that to entail?
Well, I believe that reform, one of the very first priorities for me, and I think for our church, the Catholic Church, would be family unification. To have a system where families are not fragmented and separated, deportation separating people, bureaucratic waiting lines of up to 20 years in some instances, where parents might be separated from their children and not see them for 20 years. That's unconscionable. That's terrible. So the family unit is extremely important and sacred, and that needs to be preserved, protected. And so I think the system that was the comprehensive reform should make sure that we have family unification. That's number one. Have a system that's efficient, where families are not separated in the first place, and where they can remain together, because the bureaucracy, we cut through the bureaucracy and have decisions made. So number two would be to give the immigration judges their authority back. Congress has removed a lot of the authority of immigration judges, and I think that should be given back to those judges so they can adjudicate the case. They're there, they're in the courtroom, they've heard the proceedings, they know what's best. That's why we have judges. So to give that authority back to them. I think certainly it's okay that we have, Congress may say, okay, we need to have certain immigrants like in the IT sector and other sectors. Fine, that's what we need, we understand that. But give due accord to families and family unification. So we have point system, and someone who's got a PhD in computer science gets so many points, fine, but give an equal number of points to a family member who's been separated from his or her family so they can get back and united again. So we have no quarrel with a country has a right, a sovereign right, to seek certain kinds of immigrants, but it also has a responsibility, a moral responsibility, to be open to other immigrants as well. I think we should have temporary visas. We should have a system. Right now we give about 10,000 roughly temporary visas. We need hundreds of thousands of temporary visas. So give those visas. Not every immigrant wants to become a permanent resident or citizen in the United States. Give them an opportunity to come in, do seasonal work, and go home with their families. That's what they want. They can make a living. That's what they're striving to do. It would be a wonderful thing for them to do. So I think we need more temporary visas. I think we also have, any comprehensive reform should look toward the causes of immigration. Work with those countries where large flows, immigration flows, are coming out of their country. Work with those countries to help not make immigration a necessity. We need to have realistic and assiduous, hardworking public officials who can stop the crime, who can stop the poverty, who can stop the political persecution, so that people don't have a need to immigrate. Effective policing so that gangs and drug cartels and organized crime will not rule the day. I think these things have to be in place. And to be honest with you, in some cases we have failed governments. The corruption goes all the way to the top. And we need to clean house and for the sake of the people.